Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
What's up, guys? Such an immensely informative discussion here with Dr. Paul Jaminet. Before I roll this episode, let's just get an update in for our regulars and anyone just finding us. HXP is growing fast, but personally, it's just not enough. You can help. If you like what you hear, please tell people about the show. Whether it's through social media or word of mouth, I would sincerely appreciate you letting people know that we exist. I'm sitting on a home run of an episode with Dr. Tom Campbell that should be released later this week. I'll leave it as a surprise, but we have some of the top researchers in the world slotted for this summer. So basically the only way for us to go is up. Moving into our episode here with Dr. Jaminet, he is one of those people who is highly educated and has actually done the research. The Perfect Health Diet, I highly recommend you read. We get into some very key things about what you can do to better your health, and you can learn more about that by listening to this episode. Please check out Dr. Jaminet's work. That will be linked below. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at TheHumanXP, and thank you so much for listening. The Human Experience is diving into diet, supplements, evolutionary biology, and all things health with my guest, co-author of The Perfect Health Diet, Dr. Paul Jaminet. Dr. Jaminet, thank you so much for making the time to be here, sir. Welcome to the program.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Xavier.
So, Dr. Jaminet, for our listeners that may not know, can you just get into your education and your background, please?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit overeducated. I got a Ph.D. in physics and had a career as an astrophysicist for a little while. But then I decided to leave and become a software entrepreneur. And that was during the internet boom. And then when we sold that company in 2001, then I started consulting and working on some books. I'd always wanted to write some books, and I'd gotten some good ideas in business and economics that I wanted to write about. But as I did that, I had been noticing my health declining, and it kept getting worse every year. And I finally decided that I should actually focus on health for a little while first. And so that's how I got into thinking about health.
Wow. Astrophysics. Interesting. So, I mean, let's go through what was going through your mind. I mean, how did you get to that point where you felt like you needed to write this book and create awareness on health?
Well, it really just started with my own health problems, first of all, and then my wife's. So we both had, you could call them middle-age health problems, but, things that really shouldn't have been happening and that, we knew were not just normal aging. And in my case, I'd had some problems since birth. I was in and out of the hospital the first 4 years of life. With chronic ear infections, and I had adenoid tonsils removed as part of that, and I always had some problems with fungal infections and acne and things like that. But then in my 20s, I took a year-long course for antibiotics to treat the acne, and all of my problems got worse. And then from then on, it seemed like every year I would get less and less healthy and less able to do things. And my reactions became very slow. I started dropping things all the time. I had a very bad essential tremor. I couldn't run or exercise quickly. I had memory loss. So I was really worried about, if things keep getting worse year after year, what am I going to be in 10 years? And my wife had hypothyroidism and endometriosis and other problems. And, we knew things weren't right, but we didn't know how to fix them. We would go to the doctor once a year, and he would say, I don't see anything I can do. And, so it's hard to, it was hard to get a diagnosis or a working treatment. And, this went on for years, but I just didn't know an avenue to pursue things. And then a couple things came together in 2005. First, we tried some Chinese herbal medicines, and those made a difference. They made some things better, but they also gave me like an allergic type reaction, so I stopped them. But that started me thinking, things I put in my mouth matter, because those, this wasn't, like a pill that you would buy. These were, the actual leaves and bark and herbs, and you'd make a tea decoction. Mm-hmm. So it's much like food. And, so I started thinking, it looks like, nothing in medicine had helped us, but it looks like something that is food-like has, powerful effects. And so I started thinking, it makes sense that food would be important. And so I started thinking about diet, but I didn't believe the mainstream diets, I didn't know how to pursue things. And then I came across the Paleo diet and decided to give that a try. And that also, like the Chinese medicine, had some powerful effects and really, changed the symptoms. Some things got better, some new symptoms appeared. But it was really educational and exciting. And, so now I knew diet really mattered. And, and then it became a problem of refining the Paleo diet to make it better. And that was what we ended up spending the next 5 years working on.
Very interesting. So, I know that you get into evolutionary biology, but what is, in your opinion, is an optimal diet? How does a person determine what that is for them?
Well, the way we started determining it was by looking at nutrition and looking at all of the known nutrients and figuring out what's the optimal amount of each for our bodies, and then putting that together, translating it into foods, saying what mix of foods do we need to eat in order to optimize our diet. And that's what took 5 years. It took a lot of research. But then when we did that, what we found is a lot of remarkable coincidences that led us back toward evolutionary explanations for what the optimal diet was. And so, for instance, we noticed our diet, the composition was very similar to that of breast milk. And, so then a light bulb goes on. Of course, breast milk is the optimal food for infants. It must have been selected to be, the most nourishing possible food. And so it makes sense that something similar would be optimal for adults. So the optimal adult diet has a little more protein, a little fewer carbs than breast milk, but it's very similar. And so that was one thing we noticed. And then we also noticed, our food is really delicious. It's very similar to gourmet food in the high-end restaurants. And, why is that? And then we thought, why did our, in the restaurants, they're trying to make food that, people love and, that our brains react to very positively and say, this is great. And if you think in evolutionary terms, why would our brain say this is great? Only because it would be helping us be healthy and be more successful and have more children and grandchildren. So it made sense that if we eat meals that are delicious and satisfying, then that's likely to be a very healthful diet. If it's one composed of natural whole foods, like the sorts of things we would have had access to in the Paleolithic. So we still stuck with the ancestral paleo template, but we refined it. And so our diet ends up being about 3 parts plant food to 1 part animal food. So it's more plant food rich than people may think of paleo, but it's still a Paleolithic type diet. It's a type of diet that our ancestors ate in the Paleolithic. It's a natural whole foods diet, but it's delicious. It's combined in the proportions that will make us really enjoy our food and be really satisfied after the meal is over.
Interesting, because I tend to be a very busy person, and so most of the time I am just kind of grabbing what's available and eating that, and I usually find that's not the best way to approach things. Were there some foods that you found that specifically that we should maybe absolutely avoid to maintain a healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I would definitely avoid processed foods, industrial foods. Any of the things made with purified nutrients. So usually those are things where the ingredients list starts with starch, oil, sugar. So those end up, they've taken out all of the micronutrition and the fiber from food. They've just kept the calories, and then they've repackaged the calories with some flavorings. And so you don't want to eat those. Generally, highly processed foods are going to be bad for you. And then in terms of ingredients, you generally want to avoid anything with vegetable seed oils. They're high in omega-6 fats. They tend to have toxins. They need a lot of processing in order to remove the toxins, but the processing can add toxins itself. It's good to avoid added sugar. We don't really need it. Just the natural sugars in fruits and starches and other plants are the optimal amount for us. And in general, you should be suspicious of seeds because those are going to have the most defenses, and especially the seeds of plants that grow in grasslands, like the cereal grains, like wheat, because those have co-evolved with herbivorous mammals. And so the big evolutionary challenge for the seeds was getting digested by mammals, and they don't want that to happen. So they all have digestive inhibitors and various things that interfere with the functioning of a mammal's body, and not all of them are destroyed in cooking. So we include white rice in our diet because all of the known toxins in white rice are destroyed in cooking. But in general, you should be suspicious of grains and some of the beans because they've tended to evolve toxins that affect mammalian biology.
Are there some specific vitamins that we absolutely need that you recommend that people take?
Well, we definitely need to be well nourished. So we need all of the vitamins and minerals, and actually some other nutrients that aren't classified as vitamins or minerals. And the reason things were called vitamins is they're necessary for life. If you had a diet without any of a vitamin, you would die. So they're all necessary, but some of them are really easy to get from food. So just eating a natural whole foods diet, not one of the processed foods diet that doesn't have the micronutrition, gets you a long way. And then it's really good to eat what we call supplemental foods. So foods that have, we call them that because they're foods we think you should include regularly, daily or weekly in your diet, just like supplements. And those include things like egg yolks, liver, extracellular matrix material from bones, joints, tendons, hooves, and seafood, fermented vegetables. So we have a list in our book and on our website, and then there's still a few things that it's very easy to be deficient in. So if you eat oysters, you can get enough zinc, but many people don't eat oysters and find it easier to supplement. Similarly, if you ate enough sweet peppers, you could do okay with vitamin C if you're not too sick, but many people have trouble getting enough vitamin C, and it's worth supplementing. Many people have trouble getting enough magnesium. Vitamin D, we don't get out in the sun enough, expose our skin to the sun, so it can be beneficial to supplement that. A lot of people don't eat seafood regularly enough, so supplementing iodine can be beneficial. So it's really, you have to look at the context of your diet and see what you're not getting from food, and then it can be beneficial to supply those particular things in supplemental form.
Was there anything game changing for you that you found that would improve your life by adding into your diet?
Well, for most people, it's going to be egg yolks, liver, seafood and seaweed, and fermented vegetables to support the gut flora, and extracellular matrix material. So those will probably be the biggest things that are beneficial. In terms of supplements, I'd probably say magnesium, iodine, and in people who are less healthy, vitamin C would be highly beneficial things to add. And then I'd say another huge factor in health that many people overlook is timing of when you do things. And meal timing is very important. So we recommend intermittent fasting, having an overnight fast of 16 hours, and making sure that your 8-hour feeding window is entirely in the daytime. So you want to coordinate your eating with your light exposure and your physical activity and your social interactions, and then have a period of rest at night in which you don't eat.
Very interesting. Can we get into that a little bit more? So you're saying that we should have a period of 8 hours where we spend, and those 8 hours we should eat in that window, and the other, 16 hours of the day that we should not be ingesting food at all?
That's right. So so I would recommend fluids and electrolytes during the fast. So things like coffee, tea, vegetable soup, but basically minimal or no calories. And, so at our health retreats, we suggest, especially people who have adrenal issues, keep like a cherry tomato and some salt and water by your bed, and then you can replenish electrolytes, because if your adrenals aren't functioning well, you'll tend to lose electrolytes, and you won't be able to maintain them properly in the fast. So if you replenish them, through the night, just before bed and after waking, that'll make the fast less stressful. But in general, it's a very good idea to do intermittent fasting and accentuate the circadian rhythms of food, so that your calories are concentrated in the daytime.
It's very interesting. There seems to be some mixed research on dietary supplements. On one of the two battling sides, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and these manufacturers are putting out vitamins, mineral, fiber, amino acids. On the other side, there seems to be a growing body of research that suggests people should abandon multivitamins completely, and that this is a placebo and that we're being duped. How do you respond to this, and how can laymen such as myself kind of navigate these opposing claims?
Yeah, well, it's a complex topic. So there's a lot of nutrients, and in general, the health effects of a nutrient are U-shaped. So your health is poor if you're deficient, but your health can also be damaged by getting an excess of a nutrient. So a lot of nutrients turn into toxins when you get too much. And, so that means there's an optimal amount, and whether a supplement is going to help you or hurt you depends on whether you're below the optimum or above it. And, so something like a multivitamin where, for marketing purposes, it seems the best strategy is to give people 100% of the RDA of everything. But that means, most people are getting 100% of the RDA of things in food. And so that means you're giving them 200% of a lot of nutrients. And that can potentially tip over into the toxic end. On the other side, there's a lot of things that are left out of multivitamins because they're too bulky. So people are willing to eat, several pounds of food, but they're not willing to eat a very large multivitamin. And, so they don't tend to put in bulky things like magnesium or vitamin C into multivitamins. And, so there's a lot of things that are missing from multivitamins, or they're in, homeopathic type quantities. And it happens that a lot of the things that are missing from multivitamins are the things that people are actually most deficient in. And a lot of the things that multivitamins provide, people are doing okay with and don't really need more of. So it's not that surprising that multivitamins have, shown as pretty much neutral in most studies.
So what supplements do you personally use in your life?
I take some extra vitamin C. I take a low dose of iodine daily, even though I eat a fair amount of seafood, but I don't eat seafood every day. And I think it's beneficial to get some iodine every day. And I just find it easiest to take a pill. I take vitamin D in the winter because I have difficulty I live in Boston, which is a little bit far north, and I have difficulty getting enough sunshine in the winter. And a few others. I take some zinc once a week. Let's see. I'll take some silicon occasionally. If I don't eat liver for a while, I'll take a little vitamin A. But pretty much, I try to get most nutrients from food.
Okay. Where do you think the current established kind of standing of the Western medical system is? I mean, I know that you've battled with this chronic illness, disease type stuff, and how do you feel the Western medical system is addressing these health problems that more and more people seem to be having?
Well, I think it's doing a poor job. I think we got a little carried away by the idea of pharmaceutical science. So, just the way medical science developed, when they started putting it on a good footing, in the early 20th century, they discovered the major nutrients and vitamins. And nutritional research kind of came to a stop there, and medicine moved on. There was huge progress against infectious diseases. And then when things shifted toward chronic diseases with multiple causes, so things like cancer and cardiovascular disease became the dominant causes of death, then medicine wanted to stick with kind of the pharmaceutical paradigm which had been worked out for infectious diseases, first developing vaccines and then antibiotics, and looking for compounds that would alter our biology and hope that they could find those compounds that would fix those diseases. And I think we can say at this point that the pharmaceutical approach to those diseases really hasn't worked. So basically, it looks like the causes of most modern diseases are in our diet and lifestyle and nutrition. And if you keep someone on a bad diet and keep them malnourished and keep them on an unhealthy lifestyle, but you try to alter their biology, you can't, there's no way to fix the harm of being malnourished. There's no way to fix the harm of not giving your body the lifestyle environmental signals. So the only thing the drugs can really do is move the symptoms around, so they can change where problems occur. So for instance, in diabetes, people tend to get neuropathy early on, and the drugs can move some of the harm out of the nerves and toward somewhere else, so that you sicken the whole body at the same pace, and so you don't die quite as early. And those are beneficial drugs, but what people really would have hoped for was to be made healthy. And I think what we're starting to realize is that a good diet and lifestyle approach really can fix these problems and remove the risk of the diseases. So I think in terms of where the medical system has to head, it has to incorporate diet, nutrition, lifestyle much more deeply and make those much more central to the healing process.
Right. What do you think the biggest misconception about diet and healthy food is that you've noticed?
I would say, probably the biggest popular misconception is that you need to go to extremes or you need to suffer in order to eat a healthy diet. So, a lot of the popular diet regimens that are proclaimed as healthy are, somewhat restrictive, or they may remove, one type of food entirely. So the vegan, vegetarian doctors who removed animal food or went to a very low-fat diet had a long run. And more recently, the low-carb movement, restricting carbohydrates, has, been very popular. And we've also had a lot of other more specialized diets that, remove, I'm thinking of some autoimmune protocols or gut healing, putative gut healing diets that remove a lot of types of food. So one misconception I would say is that, if you just remove lots of foods, you'll tend to improve your health. Where actually a diversity of foods is most often what's going to do you the most good. And then on the other side about taste, like we said earlier, our brains evolved to make us healthy, and so things that taste good, if they're made out of natural whole foods, are going to be healthy for us more often than not. So you don't want food that is tasteless or unpleasant or leaves you unsatisfied. There's probably something missing if that's the case.
That's interesting. Just because I've always found that the foods that are most healthy for me usually taste pretty bad. So, I wonder if you could go into that a little bit more.
Well, let me tell you what I typically eat for lunch. So I'll take a big bowl and I'll make my lunch out of leftovers, and I'll put in some kind of starch like potatoes or rice. I'll put in some kind of vegetable like spinach. Often we have leftover vegetables. I'll just put those in. I'll put in some leftover meat or fish. I'll put in 3 egg yolks. I'll put in some vinegar, some coconut milk, and fish sauce usually as flavorings, and then just heat it up in the microwave, and it's delicious. And and that's actually so we're writing a cookbook. We have a template for how do you design a meal, and it's pretty much if you get the foods in the right proportions, then it'll be delicious every time. And and actually, if you look at the nutrient composition of that lunch that I just described, and you add in a little bit of fruit or berries, then it would basically come very close to the composition of breast milk. And like we said earlier, that's a very healthy combination of nutrients.
Was there any specific moment where you realized there was a kind of eureka for you as far as, oh, okay, this works for me, and kind of your understanding of health and healthy eating, and if you could go into that for us?
I would say, one thing, anyone who's written a book will know, when you start writing, you realize how little you know, and you have to keep doing a lot of research in order to be able to, write something that's good. And so what happened for us is I was, getting to an age where the generation before mine, my father, my aunts and uncles were having, starting to have significant health problems. So I wanted to write up what I'd learned for them, and started writing something up, and then I kept finding, things I needed to think more deeply about, and it kept growing. And then I decided, once that was done, that I should turn it into a book, and kept going. And then we started a blog, and we kept learning from our readers. And then Scribner and Simon and Schuster came to us and asked us to do a new version, and so we did another round of research and updated everything. And I would say the big, eureka moments are, things like, first of all, people mostly aren't deficient in vitamins; they're mostly deficient in minerals, and so that was one thing where, I'd had kind of a haphazard record of supplementing things, but I would tend to focus on vitamins. And, most people don't need B vitamin supplements, but most people do need more minerals. So that was probably one of the earliest eureka moments. I would say, once we had gotten through all of the nutritional analysis and saw a picture of what the diet looked like and realized that it looked like gourmet cuisine, that was a major eureka moment. Also realizing that it looked like breast milk, and then starting to look into some of the evolutionary explanations, and then realizing, well, the breast milk of all the animals is similar, so why do animals eat different diets? And then looking into that aspect, we realized that it's really only the digestive tracts that evolve, and the nutritional needs of animals are pretty much all the same. And that's why the breast milk is very similar. And, so all that really evolves when animals move to a different food source is the digestive tract changes in order to convert the foodstuffs into a different set of nutrients. And, so humans are interesting. We have a pretty minimal digestive tract, and therefore we need to eat close to our optimal nutritional needs. And so the animals that can eat things that don't have optimal nutrition need to have very big guts to do a lot of fermentation of the plant foods and transform them into a different set of nutrients. There were a lot of insights, and then also I would say in writing the Scribner edition, we realized the importance of lifestyle. And, things like meal timing, other circadian rhythm entrainment factors, and coordinating the various circadian rhythm entrainers. So coordinating when you eat with when you're exposed to light, with when you exercise, with when you get social interactions. Those are all important things to do.
Interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that. So you get into evolutionary biology and you talk about how there was a shift of the sort of hunter-gatherer to your modern day supermarket. If you could get into that for a bit, I think that would be interesting.
Well, there's a number of changes. So, one of them is, of course, the hunter-gatherers, all they had were natural whole foods. And we have those around the edges of the supermarket, but then in the middle of the supermarket, we have all these manufactured foods, which were put together with only specific nutrients and are often completely lacking in other nutrients. And so for the first time, you can eat foods that have been designed to appeal to our brains, but that don't actually have the nutrients that our brain expects, and that the natural whole foods that had that same taste would have provided. So it's now possible to be malnourished in a way that hunter-gatherers could never have been malnourished except in starvation. So for the first time we can be overeating calories but undereating nutrition, and that really wouldn't have happened in the Paleolithic. And then it's also possible now to have totally messed up circadian rhythms. So if you think back in the Paleolithic, it wasn't that easy to do a lot of things at night. You could start a fire, but it's still not that convenient. Anyone who's gone camping, it's not that convenient to cook and do a lot of work in the dark. And, some in the Paleolithic, most of the eating would have been done in the daytime because that's when it was convenient to do all that work. And they would have eaten very little at night, but now we have artificial lighting. We've got refrigerators and so on. We can raid them at midnight, and it's very easy to eat at night. So, a lot of things have changed. Our technology has liberated us in many ways, but it's also liberated us to do unhealthy things. And we've managed to start doing them in quantity, most of us. So, it's definitely, it's now essential for people to educate themselves about what is a healthy diet, what is a healthy lifestyle, and then manage their lives that way, because the environment no longer forces us to live with a healthy lifestyle. It allows us to be very unhealthy if we choose to live that way.
Very interesting. So what is your, I tend to go to the gym quite a lot, and in kind of the gym language, the ketosis is brought up a lot, and avoiding carbs, and what's your opinion on that?
Well, that's another, we mentioned earlier some of the restrictive diet approaches that are sometimes used as therapies for various things. So the vegan, low-fat restrictive diets, or the low-carb restrictive diets. And ketosis it's another form of restrictive diet. When we're starved of carbohydrate and protein, then our bodies start turning fats into ketones, and the ketones can substitute for carbohydrates in the brain and various other places. And so it's a way of coping with a carbohydrate restriction, and this can actually be beneficial in certain health conditions. It can be beneficial for neurological function and some other issues. And so it's actually a medically approved therapy for epilepsy, and it works also for many other neurological conditions like migraines. But it's like all the restrictive diets, it's very easy to become malnourished when you do that. If you're not eating carbohydrates, then you're probably not supplying your gut microbiome with carbohydrates, and you need to get quite a bit of carbohydrate fiber in order to have a healthy gut microbiome. And there's also certain plant-associated nutrients and minerals like potassium that it's very easy to be deficient in if you're on a carb-restricted diet. And there are some risks to getting too much oil also. So, one of the ways people promote the generation of ketones is by overeating oil, and that can lead to oxidative stress and other issues, with potentially negative effects on the heart and other tissues. So, so I would say ketogenic diets, which put people on ketosis, they're potentially a powerful therapeutic option, but they're also tend to be a risky option, and so I wouldn't recommend that as a routine diet. But like I said, I recommend intermittent fasting of 16 hours each night, and so that will start to put you in a little bit of ketosis toward the end of the fast, and that's not a bad thing. So, you want to have a certain degree of moderation in regard to ketosis.
Yeah, it does seem like there needs to be a sort of sense of balance in all things, which makes sense. Is there something that you could give a person, maybe perhaps listening to the show right now, one thing that they can do that would immediately improve their overall health?
Be well nourished. So supplemental foods, things like egg yolks, really do tend to improve health quite a bit. I would say, the meal timing, the circadian rhythm, circadian rhythm entrainment is very powerful for health. You can easily, in studies, shorten people's lives by 6 years by disrupting circadian rhythms. And and just disrupting any one factor in circadian rhythms. Like if you don't exercise, you'll lose 6 years off your life. If you get a night shift job, you'll lose 6 years off your life. Or if you get sleep apnea. If you get a lot of loud noises or bright lights at night, then you'll lose 6 years off your life. If you don't get enough social interactions in the day, then you'll lose years off your life. So all of those factors are really important. Eating at night is associated with obesity and diabetes and various other health problems. So you definitely want to focus your food intake in the daytime. And, so probably those are, and of course, eating a natural whole foods diet. So you really want to avoid the manufactured foods in the middle of the supermarket.
Makes sense to me. Is there, and one question, we're about to wrap up here, but one last question that I like to ask all my guests, is there one thing that you would, if there was one thing that you could go back in time and tell yourself when you began this journey, what would it be?
Well, I'd like to carry a copy of our book back and give it to myself and say, read this, because actually the name of our book, Perfect Health Diet, that is chosen, it's not so much that we're claiming that our diet is already perfect. It's more that we're saying you really need to aim for perfection in order to achieve goodness, in order to achieve good health. And the reason is that there are so many factors that influence health. There are 50 to 100 nutrients that have a big impact on our health. There are also many lifestyle factors, things like meal timing, influences on your gut microbiome. So there's just many, many factors that influence health. So there's no one magic bullet. But if you get the complete story together, then it can make a huge difference. And so that's why I'd have to carry back our book, which discusses a great many things, and just recommend that.
So no one specific message for your younger self then?
Yeah, well, I think we said some of them: eat natural whole foods, be well nourished, and entrain circadian rhythms would be the biggest things. But if there were a magic bullet in diet, nutrition, health, then it would have been found long ago. If all you had to do was do one thing,
Very true.
You'd have great health, then it would have been discovered pretty quickly.
So where can people find more about your work and what you and your wife are doing?
Well, you can go to our website, perfecthealthdiet.com. And we also conduct health retreats twice a year in May and October. And those are called the Perfect Health Retreat. And they've been a great experience so far.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Jaminet. I really appreciate you making the time and being present here with us. And this is The Human Experience. Thank you so much for listening. We're signing out.
All right. Thank you, Xavier.